There's a type of courage that has nothing to do with winning. And today, you'll discover how a Spartan king who marched 300 men into certain death developed a mental framework that makes external pressure completely irrelevant to your decisions. Have you ever noticed how some people simply don't break? You pile pressure on them. They hold. You take away their allies. They hold. You strip them of every logical reason to continue. They still hold. Not because they're reckless. Not because they don't understand the odds. But because something inside them operates on a completely different logic than the one the world is using against them. While everyone else calculates survival odds, while everyone else adjusts their position based on what the crowd approves, these people have severed that connection entirely. And you know what most people think? They were just born brave. They don't feel fear like the rest of us. Their psychology is wired differently. But what if the reason you buckle under pressure isn't weakness? What if it's because you've never built the internal architecture that makes outside pressure structurally irrelevant? King Leonidas didn't walk into Thermopylae on emotion. He walked in on a system. A deliberate, trained mental structure that made the question, how many are against you, completely meaningless. And once you understand how that system works, the world's resistance will stop being a reason to retreat and start being proof that you're moving in the right direction. But there's a catch. This will require you to do something most people refuse. Decide what you're willing to die for before the battle begins. Not metaphorically, literally. Your values, your mission, your line. Fixed before the pressure arrives. Chapter 1. The Awakening. Sparta, 480 BC. Leonidas was 60 years old when the Persian messengers arrived. Xerxes had assembled the largest army the ancient world had ever seen. Estimates range from 100,000 to over 1,000,000 men. He had already conquered everything in his path. Nations fell not in battle, they fell in the negotiation room, the moment their leaders calculated the odds and chose submission. The messengers delivered Xerxes' terms. Simple, elegant, generous even. Submit. Offer earth and water as tokens of surrender. And in exchange, Sparta would be spared. Your people live. Your city stands. You keep your culture, your language, your identity. Just bend the knee. Once. Leonidas didn't deliberate for weeks. He didn't call a strategy session to weigh the options. He didn't send back a counteroffer. He threw the Persian messengers into a well. Most people read that story and think arrogance, pride, the reckless stubbornness of a warrior culture. But here's what they miss. Leonidas had already done the thinking, years before the messengers arrived. The decision at the well wasn't made in that moment. It was the execution of a decision made long ago. And that's the first principle. The mentally unbreakable don't make their core decisions under pressure. They make them in silence, in advance, and then they simply enforce them when the moment comes. Leonidas knew exactly what he was. He knew exactly what Sparta stood for. He knew the precise line he would not cross. So when the pressure arrived, wearing a reasonable face, there was nothing to negotiate. The framework was already closed. Think about your own life. When pressure comes, social disapproval, financial threat, the withdrawal of support, where are you making the decision? In the moment, under fire, when your nervous system is flooding with cortisol and everyone around you is suggesting you be reasonable, that's not a decision. That's a collapse, wearing the mask of pragmatism. Chapter 2. The Principle. Stand before the pass. The month before Thermopylae, Leonidas did something that confused everyone around him. He chose 300 men, not Sparta's largest force, not a calculated defensive army. 300, specifically selected not just for skill, but for one qualification above all others. Each man had a living son. Why? Because Leonidas wasn't building a force of men who hoped to survive. He was building a force of men who had already resolved the question of their own death. Men whose bloodline would continue regardless. Men who had nothing left to protect, because the thing they most wanted to protect was already secured. He was engineering the psychology of the unit before they ever reached the pass. Here's the principle he understood that most people never apply. You cannot perform at full capacity while simultaneously managing your fear of loss. The energy required to protect your position, your reputation, your comfort, that energy is borrowed directly from your ability to act. The Spartans at Thermopylae were terrifying not because they were the strongest warriors in Greece. Several city-states had better equipped armies. They were terrifying because they had nothing left to lose. And a man with nothing left to lose is structurally different from a man still calculating the cost of failure. Leonidas called this, in the Spartan tradition, the preparation before the preparation. You don't sharpen your spear the night before battle. You resolve your relationship with death. Everything else is technical, applied to your life. Before you attempt anything that will draw resistance, and anything meaningful will draw resistance, you must resolve the question of loss in advance. What is the worst that happens if you lose? Can you survive it? Can you accept it? If yes, then the threat loses its power to steer you. The world's leverage over you is exactly proportional to what you're afraid to lose. Remove the fear of the loss. Remove the leverage. Chapter 3. When the Allies leave. At Thermopylae, the Greek coalition began to fracture on day 2. City-states that had pledged support started sending messages. The Persian force was larger than projected. The position was less defensible than hoped. Reasonable men were reconsidering. The logic was sound. A tactical withdrawal now preserved forces for a larger defense later. Strategically defensible, militarily rational. Most of the Greek allies retreated. Leonidas stayed with 300. Here's what that moment reveals about the architecture of mental endurance. The moment your allies leave is the most dangerous moment, not because you're now physically weaker, but because their departure is delivered as proof that you're wrong. The implicit message in every defection is intelligent people are leaving. If you stay, you're not brave. You're delusional. This is the social pressure that breaks most people, not direct opposition. Abandonment framed as reason. Leonidas had anticipated this. He understood a principle that took modern psychology centuries to name. Social proof operates as a replacement for individual judgment in people who haven't established their own internal authority. When the crowd moves, the unanchored person moves with them, not out of cowardice, but because they have no fixed point to measure against. His fixed point was Sparta's law. The duty was clear. The oracle at Delphi had spoken. Either Sparta falls or a Spartan king does. Leonidas had chosen which. When your fixed point is established, the departure of allies provides no new information. It tells you something about their calculation. It tells you nothing about your mission. The question is not, how many people are still with me? The question is, was my reasoning sound when I made this decision in the first place? If yes, then the number of people who have since changed their minds is noise. Chapter 4. Holding the Pass. 3 days. Thermopylae held for 3 days. Each morning, Xerxes sent messengers offering one final chance to surrender. Each morning, Leonidas sent the same answer: come and take them. What was happening psychologically in that pass? The Persians were expecting fear to compound. Day 1, the Greeks hold, perhaps on adrenaline and initial resistance. Day 2, they hold. Now the Persians start to feel genuine discomfort. By day 3, the Spartans are exhausted, their numbers thinned, their position increasingly compromised. This is the moment when a rational force breaks. The Spartans fought harder. Here's what Leonidas understood about endurance that most people learn backwards. Resistance from the outside is not a sign that you should stop. It's a mechanical indicator that what you're doing matters. An army doesn't send 100,000 men to stop something irrelevant. The scale of the opposition is a measurement of the scale of the threat you represent. Most people experience opposition and read it as evidence they were wrong. The Spartan framework reads it in reverse. Opposition is confirmation. This cognitive inversion is not denial. It's not the refusal to process accurate information. It's the correct reading of what opposition actually signals. The world resists what threatens it. If you're facing enormous resistance, you have become a genuine threat to something. Adjust your interpretation accordingly. Chapter 5. The Betrayal. On the 3rd day, a local shepherd named Ephialtes revealed to Xerxes the secret mountain path around the Spartan position. The pass was lost, not to superior force, to information, to betrayal. This is the moment that shatters most frameworks of courage. Because Leonidas had prepared for opposition, he had prepared for numerical disadvantage, he had prepared for abandonment. But betrayal, the kind that renders your defensive position tactically worthless, that's the blow that no amount of willpower survives. Except Leonidas had also prepared for this, not tactically, philosophically. He sent the remaining Greek allies away. He kept the 300. And he issued the order to hold the pass to the last man, knowing now that holding it meant dying in it, and that dying in it would buy Greece the time to reorganize, regroup, and eventually, at Salamis, win. The mission shifted. The stand at Thermopylae was no longer about surviving the battle. It was about making the battle mean something for what came after. Leonidas had understood from the beginning that the value of what you do is not always visible in the outcome you personally experience. He told his men that morning, "Eat well. Tonight we dine in Hades." Not despair, not resignation, clarity. The decision was made. The action aligned with the decision. The result was accepted in advance. This is the complete architecture of the unbreakable mind. You are not unbreakable because you never feel the hit. You are unbreakable because the hit doesn't change your direction. Chapter 6. The 5 Principles of the Thermopylae Mind. 1. Decide before the pressure. Your core commitments must be established in silence before the opposition arrives. Decisions made under pressure are not decisions. They're reactions. 2. Resolve the loss in advance. Identify the worst outcome. Sit with it. Accept it. The moment you've genuinely accepted the worst case, the threat of it loses all leverage over your behavior. 3. Establish your fixed point. Define what you stand for, with enough precision that the behavior of others provides no new information about whether you should continue. Let your mission be the measurement, not the crowd. 4. Read resistance as confirmation. Opposition is not evidence that you're wrong. It's evidence that you're significant. Recalibrate your interpretation of resistance accordingly. 5. Separate your action from your outcome. You control the decision and the execution. You do not control the result. The unbreakable mind gives everything to what it controls and releases what it doesn't. This is not passivity. This is precision, the warrior's truth. Thermopylae didn't stop Xerxes. Xerxes burned Athens anyway. By the conventional measurement of military success, Leonidas lost. But the stand at the pass changed the psychology of an entire civilization. It proved that resistance was possible. It bought time. It became the story that held Greece together long enough to win at Salamis. The world will tell you that if you lose the immediate battle, the stand was pointless. That's the logic of people who measure meaning by short-term outcomes. Leonidas understood a different measurement. Did you act in alignment with your values? Did you hold the line you said you would hold? Did you give everything available to you, without reservation, in service of something larger than your personal survival? If yes, the outcome is secondary information. Your external circumstances are negotiating with you right now. The pressure is real. The allies may be leaving. The odds may be genuinely, undeniably against you. None of that is the question. The question is the same one Leonidas answered at the well, long before the messengers arrived. What is your line? And will you hold it? That's the only variable you actually control. Now go establish it. Now go hold it. Now go stand to the end.